everyone, and welcome to another exciting interview by Financial Insight. We are currently at the NWEC HQ right here in Lusaka, where I will be sitting down with our good friend, Mr. Andrew Kamanga, who's going to tell me a little bit about the key developments in the energy sector, as well as his participation in next week's Africa Energy Indaba. So stay tuned and get to know. Welcome back. As I'd indicated, I'm sitting down with Mr. Andrew Kamanga. Mr. Kamanga, how are you?
Very well, thanks, and it's always nice to have you.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to come through to your HQ in Lusaka. But just to get us started, obviously we're just days away from the Africa Energy Indaba, which obviously brings together key stakeholders in the sector. Are you able to just give us an overview of what you feel was some of the key issues that Zambia and as well as the region face in terms of the energy supply industry?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think from the Zambian perspective, the industry has continued to evolve. I think just 2 years ago we saw the open access being talked about, and last year it was very practical. So transactions started. I think the power traders came into the market to obviously cover the gap that was created out of a limited supply. And that, I think, went a long way in ensuring that the country continued to have power. Because as you would expect, Zesco seemingly had a challenge to import the power purely on account of financial capacity, but the traders were able to step in with their liquidity and rearrange their financing, as well as get PPAs with the suppliers of power, and they were able to take the power to the market. What was also key for me is that we saw the prices of power, the tariffs, going to what one would call the cost reflective, because for a long time tariff has been the sticking point for investment. So we suddenly had in the market, because the end users were willing to pay for available power. So we saw prices coming in from somewhere around 12 cents per kilowatt hour, even as high as 18 cents, because the market was opening up. And we hope that this spike in the tariff will settle somewhere where investment can also follow. So the open access to a certain extent has been welcome, and we hope that we'll see more reforms over and above open access where traders have come in, so that we continue to have more investment in the sector.
Right. Now, Mr. Kamanga, come next week you will be at Africa Energy Indaba in Cape Town, South Africa. I'll remind our viewers that a while back you did mention that NWEC was seeking, participating in the capital markets. Are you able to just share with us, what this, how the journey is like on that front? But then, what sort of key messaging will you be taking to the Indaba next week?
Yes, we are participating at the Indaba, and for the first time we are also sponsoring a breakaway session, purely to discuss the grid interconnectivity within the Southern African power pool, as well as the rest of Africa. So we have panelists coming from all parts of Africa, and I think it will be a very exciting conversation, because at the end of the day we want to see how power can be moving from one part of Africa to the other. So we've got the Southern African power pool, the Eastern African power pool, the West African power pool, and then we see how we can get interconnection going. Of course, it's easy to move the power around, but for you to be able to do that, the power has to be available. So we cannot talk about transmission to the exclusion of what is going on in the generation. So I think it will be a very exciting panel, and most importantly for us, we want to see how Zambia fits into the regional perspective when it comes to power trading. So we are very, very excited to be a sponsor for that panel. But outside that, we are also happy that participating in such an event gives us the visibility. We continue to create our brand, and obviously the connections we secure, an investment in the life of the institution.
Absolutely, absolutely. So this more or less fits into the broader strategy with your intent to list on the capital markets.
Yes, coming back to that, I think the reason why we are talking about going ahead with listing is very simple. We initially set out as a distribution company. We operate in 3 mine townships in Solwezi, Lumwana, and Kalombila. And as part of our diversification and long-term growth strategy, we want to go beyond our current locations. We are looking at new projects. There's one coming up in Lusaka where there's potentially a 5,000 housing estate development. We want to be there to supply the power. There's also another project coming up in Eastern Province for a housing estate. We think that having established ourselves in the Northwest, we can then look at other opportunities within the country. And for us to be able to take on those opportunities, it will require additional capital. But outside the distribution, we are also looking to get our membership with Southern African Power Pool, simply because we are also looking at setting up a trading division on the power side. And then most importantly, last week we were in Italy. We had a conversation with one of the solar plant providers. We are negotiating an EPC contract with them to see if they can come and put up a solar plant for us. And of course, that will require a substantial amount of investment. Now, taking all these activities together, we are at a point as a company where we believe that bringing in new investors, new capital, is basically going to strengthen the company. And we believe that listing gives an opportunity to the rest of Zambians to participate in being a shareholder in Northwestern. So we are now moving away from a private company to partially become a public listed company.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, for viewers that might not know, because, Mr. Kamanga, you have been a stalwart, if I could call you that, in the energy sector. You have understood the importance of dialogue, especially with key stakeholders, etc. Now, this year's theme at this Indaba is, from dialogue to action. And it explicitly focuses on moving from dialogue into action, especially when it comes to projects. As someone who has built a private utility from the ground up in a challenging regulatory environment, what does action actually look like in practice, and what are the biggest barriers still preventing the energy sector from translating good intentions into built infrastructure and bankable projects?
Well, it's very simple. I'll answer the first part from your last part. When you talk about bankability, it's speaking to the tariff and obviously the regulatory environment. I think in Zambia we've been fortunate that ERB has been at the front of ensuring that the reforms that the government and policies that are coming up are obviously supported by regulation. Of course, it's important that you have to abide by the rules. In fact, now, with the coming in of open access regime, we are likely to see the creation of an independent system operator so that there's predictability when it comes to transfer of the power, because the regulator has to play a big role in that respect. And of course, currently the infrastructure, mostly on transmission and distribution, is owned by Zesco. So to facilitate trading, it requires the regulator to also step in and ensure that the rules are clear. So to that extent, we are very, very happy that the ERB continues to play a very, very critical role at this point of the development of the industry. Looking at where we are coming from and where we are, I think we've done extremely well as a country, and we can still do more because reforms are obviously ongoing and they can never be a target, but they should always evolve to suit the environment that we operate in. But the key issue for me still remains the tariff. If we can get cost reflective tariffs, this is the only parameter that is going to ensure that more investment comes into the power sector, whether we are talking about the generation side, whether it's solar, thermal, or indeed hydro. It can only be supported by whatever tariff is there. And with the open market, we believe that PPAs will become easy to deal with. And of course, on the retail side, the regulator will continue to regulate the market. But the biggest issue, the elephant in the room for Zambian power sector, is sorting out the tariff.
Right. Now, you've indicated that you'll be sponsoring a breakaway session at the coming Indaba. Would you just share with us what value that participating that you're hoping to derive from participating in this Indaba?
Yes, as I indicated, obviously it's very key. It's an opportunity to make key contacts, we make the connections, but it's a gathering where you have the most important stakeholders around the energy sector sitting in one room. You've got your bankers, you've got your project developers, you've got investors. So it's a combination. Regulators are also in there. So it's a lot easier to meet up and then see and pitch. On our side, as I indicated, as part of our intention to list, we have to look at investing in generation. We are also pursuing a number of possible interconnector projects within the region. And we are also looking at raising more capital for our activities. So to that extent, the platform will give us an opportunity to share our vision with those who are obviously directly linked to the sector. And hopefully it will be an easy conversation to get our project into the market and then get acceptance. As you would expect, the power sector is an investment where you have to wait a long time. It's not where you invest and get a return tomorrow. So we are ready for the long haul. We've been around for more than 17 years, but we are still going.
Absolutely, absolutely. Maybe as we draw to a close, you've touched on some of your ambitions. One of the things the Financial Insight noticed is obviously, the buzz around copper, etc., and the importance of interconnectivity. How do you see NWEC positioning itself going forward, especially now that you're also looking at the listing going forward over the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, thank you very much for that. In fact, yes, government is quite ambitious. They've talked about two things. One, to try and get capacity generation up to 10,000 megawatts by the year 2030, and also to get to deliver 3 million tons of copper by 2035 or 2033, somewhere there. So those are quite ambitious targets, and we are just sitting at a point where we can get, we are getting closer to 1 million tons. So to double that, it shows you the extent of what needs to be done. However, government obviously is looking at the bigger picture, but we still feel that the 10,000 megawatts is achievable. But ultimately, like I've always indicated, if I take the view of a policymaker, I think one needs to plan for the power sector over a long period of time. We need a 50-year master plan which speaks to where the energy sector is going to be, because the country is growing at different rates. The GDP is up there, inflation is now in single digits, the exchange rate has equally performed reasonably well, the kwacha has done well. I think we are just shy of 18 kwacha somewhere there. But with all these parameters, they are a good base to prepare for the future. And of course, with the politicians, they have a 5-year life cycle. But the power sector needs to be planned over a long-term horizon. So I think it's a question of meeting the minds and ensuring that the objectives are speaking to each other so that we have a long-term sustainable power industry we've had shocks, and I keep making reference to this. When it comes to load shedding, it's nothing new. It's something we've had the time of MMD under Rupiah Banda. We also had it under PF with late President Edgar Lungu, and now we have it with UPND and President HH. But the ultimate is, how do you resolve the problem? It means if we had resolved the problem in 2010, we wouldn't be where we are. And it did recur halfway in 2015. And even now, it's still there. So yes, if you look at the current situation, in the last 2-3 months, there's been a significant improvement in the supply of power, and I think the load shedding has sort of subsided. But is that the ultimate? We now need to find a long-term sustainable solution where we can completely eradicate load shedding. And to be able to do that, we have to start thinking about the energy mix. We need to ensure that we get more investment out of solar. Though it's not base load, it will be supported with battery, but we have enough core reserves to be able to generate 5,000 megawatts, 10,000. So for me, my view is that we need to have more thermal generation from coal, right, which can supplement the hydro, so that at any given point, when we have a challenge, we obviously are able to resolve whatever challenges we have. Equally, to get the power in and get the power out, the interconnection, the grid investment needs to happen, and it has to happen fairly quickly. So I think those are the areas where we think a lot more needs to be done by both the government as well as the private sector and all the key participants in the sector to ensure that we build a robust power industry.
Absolutely. Mr. Kamanga, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and insights ahead of the Africa Energy Indaba.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Absolutely. So you've heard it for yourself. We have been speaking to Mr. Kamanga right here in Lusaka, Zambia at the NWEC offices. We will be with NWEC at Africa Energy Indaba, and if you would like to get in touch with the team, look out for details on the NWEC LinkedIn as well as Facebook page. I've been your host for this interview. My name is Mwelwa Kenneth Chibesakunda, and as we always say at Financial Insight, get to know.